D2H to find out that this camera can still take decent photos in 2019.
The Nikon D2H was released in July 2003, sporting a 4.1 megapixel DX sensor and optimized for action shooting such as sport and wildlife. The sensor has an ISO sensitivity of 200 to 1600 but can be boosted up to 6400. Really though, to get the most out of the camera you'll want to keep that under 800 and ideally keep the camera ISO 200 as much as possible. Beyond this, the images quickly become noisy and lose dynamic range. Getting the exposure right also needs more care because dynamic range is far more limited than in modern cameras. Fortunately, it's very easy to turn bracketing on and off with a dedicated button. The D2H does have a notorious issue. When the first time the shutter is fired, sometimes it can give an error, and sadly this camera suffers from that problem. After the first shutter release, the camera operates normally, but it doesn't instill much confidence and is likely to point to further future problems. Is this an indication that the mechanism could die soon? I don't know, but it probably wouldn't be worth the cost of repair if it does completely fail. Some might see the megapixel count as a very limiting factor. We are now too used to sensors of 24 megapixels or larger, and perhaps this has left us a little bit lazy knowing we can easily crop later on, and so not work on the composition as carefully as perhaps we should. With the right lens and the frame done properly in camera, the low pixel count isn't as big a deal as you might think. Sure, you're not going to make massive poster size prints, but as many of us share our images online on Instagram and the like, 4 megapixels isn't as much of a negative as you might imagine. Despite this camera being ancient in terms of technology, there is still plenty of positives for it. Probably the best aspect of this is the great handling. The D2H feels great in the hand. It has a solid metal construction with all the buttons you'll ever need within reach without having to dip into menus. I set my cameras up with back button focusing, so the shutter is just the shutter. This makes the camera feel very responsive. Focusing snaps in quickly and burst rate is higher than anything I'll ever need for the shooting that I do. I did very much enjoy having the camera around my neck, but I definitely knew it was there given its weight. So is this a camera that is worth purchasing in 2019? On balance, it's a difficult camera to recommend unless you can find one for well under £100. As this was aimed at professional use, most cameras have a lot of wear. They're well built and handle this well, but along with a high frame rate, the chances are any camera you'll find will have a big click count. Given the shutter error issue, small pixel count and a limited ISO range, unless you must have the pro level handling and build, a D300 makes far more sense as a second-hand buy. The D2H is an interesting experience and is capable of producing nice images with good glass, but in 2019, it's not one that I'd want as an everyday carry.